Hey guys, how's it going? So Conqueror Lilias was just shown off, and she's looking really good so far. So she's a light warrior that's Aquarius. They changed her class from knight to warrior, and she's the first Aquarius warrior in the game actually. So her base stats are incredibly bad base attacks, so you can tell she's not really full DPS. Really good health, incredibly good speed, good defense, and then some effectiveness, which comes into play in her skill set. Her imprints don't really make too much of a difference overall, but, you know, they're just nice to have. She's coming in a couple of weeks, so you still have time to save, but let's get into her skills, because this is where it gets pretty crazy. So her S3, this is an incredibly strong skill. So first of all, you give Vigor to the team, and Vigor is a special buff that almost nobody in the game is able to get. I think only people are Emo Kawazu and Ken, possibly one or two others, maybe. But it's mostly a unique buff. It's an 30% increased attack and defense, and that stacks with attack buff and defense buff, which is incredibly strong. That means you can use her with those kinds of characters that are able to give those buffs, and you're not losing out on having two attack buffers. You have two separate buffers on your team. Not only that, but she reduces buff duration while enemies by 1 turn, so strips their immunity at the beginning of a match, and has a 100% chance to decrease attack for 2 turns, then gets an extra turn right after. So she kind of just immediately cripples your opponent's team, gets rid of all their immunities, so you can follow up with all sorts of debuffs or just tons of different units. So she can be used in really aggressive teams, she can be used in teams with lots of debuffs, she can be used even in a defensive team, really, with the decreased attack. And the fact that you're getting 30% defense as well means your opponent's team is doing very little damage to you overall. One thing to note about Vigor as well is it cannot be dispelled, so a unit like Rimuru is unable to actually copy that for his team. He will use his S2, but he will not be able to copy this, which is actually really nice. And another thing is, you know, it can't be stripped by like Politis, let's say, but if you have Unbuffable on, it won't apply at the start. But basically, this skill is incredibly strong. It just does so much for so many different teams. You're getting tankier, you're doing more damage, they're doing less damage, you're stripping their immunity off of them so you can follow up. So if you use her, your opponent doesn't know what to expect if you, let's say, first picked her, because she can be used with so many possible teams. And then her S2. So she gets an extra turn for her S3, is immediately able to go into this or her S1. So if you use your S2, does redirected provoke. It's very similar to normal Lilias for 1 turn instead of 2 turns, and the soul burn makes it 2 turns. But this is actually a really strong follow-up because you stripped their immunity, then you're able to disable one of their units. You could use that on Politis, who just procced her S2. She's not able to do anything. You could use that on Rimuru, so he's not able to S3 when his turn comes around. You could use that on Angel of Light Angelica to stop her from doing anything. You could use this on Emil Kawaric if you soul burn it, so he can't cleanse or do anything for his team. These are all really strong options. Just being able to take somebody out of the fight, being able to disable their team, buff your team, strip their buffs, and then be able to also disable one of their units is kind of ridiculous. The amount of utility that gives to you at the beginning of a match is kind of absurd. And then the thing is, to top it all off, she has normal Lilias' S1. Now, it doesn't scale with health like normal Lilias, so she's actually doing way less damage. She basically does no damage, realistically, but she's just the ultimate support for your team. And you can stack her with some of the best supports in the game, like Maid Chloe, Emil Kawaric. I would consider Closer Charles to be one of those, Amelia, because they give attack buff and other utility to your team, and guess what? That stacks with Vigor, and your team's also getting tankier. It's been very popular recently. I've seen a lot of people to use Emil Kawaric and a bunch of aggressive units like Apocalypse Ravi, let's say, or Rimuru, and not even draft a tank with Aureus. Well, she fits perfectly into those kinds of teams. You can be incredibly aggressive with her while also reducing the amount of damage that your opponent's doing to you with reduced attack, and also increasing your defense, and those buffs also stack with attack buff and defense buff that you could be given from other allies. So it feels as though she has a huge amount of potential. She seems like the type of unit you could even pick first because your opponent doesn't know if you're going an incredibly aggressive comp, which I think she fits perfectly in, or possibly even a control team, maybe, or even a defensive team. She might just be such an incredibly good unit that she can be used everywhere. So another thing to note is that her S2 goes to a 3-turn cooldown, and I think how a lot of people are going to be building her is approximately maybe at least 270 speed. I think people are going to try and make her really, really fast while also being kind of tanky, and possibly at around 100% effectiveness to get characters like, let's say, Crimson Armin or, you know, someone like Amelia. I think it'll be really useful to be able to get some Soul Weavers and some kind of tanky units that build a little bit of FRS, but not too much. But she's going to be faster than any character but a true speed contest, like a, you know, like 290 plus Fairy Tail Tenebria. But some people might even make her to contest those because her base speed is so incredibly high. You don't know what to expect from your opponent's Conqueror Lilias, so she's kind of a wild card and she's probably pretty scary. It seems very difficult to actually be able to fight against this, and if she's in a very aggressive team, it feels like you'll just get run over by her. Now, her weaknesses, I guess, would be that her damage is terrible, probably alone. We don't know the exact numbers, but looking at her attack and no scaling of any other sort, I can't imagine they're good at all. So that's very weak. And also, you know, she can be 15%ed, but other than that, she just seems like an incredibly strong support unit that works with almost every other support unit in the game. I guess if her S1 is constantly pulling allies that don't do much on their S1s, then it's not very powerful. But I think she pairs with some of the best units in the game right now, which only enhances those kinds of teams that use them. Teams with Apocalypse Ravi, Emil Kawerik, Maid, etc. And every aggressive team is probably going to want her. Now, as for artifacts, I think some artifacts such as maybe Champion's Trophy could be used on her. It gives increased effectiveness and makes it so she can stun an S1, and it kind of sounds annoying to be stunned by that. But also I think something like Pure White Trust, Zahhak's artifact that gives speed buff when you use a non-attack skill and also crit damage on the next turn. The damage doesn't really matter, but I think the speed buff could be really nice so that she's able to lap. It could make it, so theoretically if you have an incredibly fast one and you use this ability and soul burn it, you might be able to just permanently keep somebody on lockdown for the entire match and that they're never able to actually take a turn, which seems incredibly powerful. Also, you could possibly use the artifact Border Coin because she immediately uses 2 non-attack skills, so she's actually able to stack 2 stacks of Border Coin to get 20% increased speed and, you know, some increased attack, but the attack's not too big of a deal. But these are just some possibilities for artifacts. All in all, she sounds like an incredibly strong character. She could end up being a must pull. I'm going to be pulling her the moment she comes out to try her out. She seems fun. Her design's amazing. Her S3 animation is awesome. So I'm going to be trying her out to see exactly how good she's going to be. But my first impression is she seems kind of like the type of character that's going to become a staple in the game and become very popular at all levels of play. She seems like a PvP goddess. Maybe even pretty damn good in PvE in some instances as well. But just overall, seems like the type of character you really want to save for. We don't know if Judge Kisei is about to get buffed. She's currently on banner, but it feels like even if she is, this is the kind of character you want to go for. I'll be putting up another video when she actually comes out, but for now, these are my first impressions, and thanks a bunch for watching.